Good morning, friends. It's Matt Greer in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm here in the sanctuary of St. John's United Methodist Church. I am here for Monday morning music with Matt, and I'm so happy that you all are with us this morning. I hope that this is going to be an especially fun and edifying session. Before I introduce our guest and we start abusing each other, as always, I want to remind you of a couple of things that are coming up this week in the music ministry at St. John's. We have been doing Wednesday live stream concerts pretty much since lockdown began, both as a way to keep continuing to put music out to the community and to provide performing opportunities and work to local musicians. So Wednesday noon Mountain Standard Time. This week we're going to welcome a bunch of wonderful local string players who are calling themselves the Aspen String Quintet. And that includes violinists David Felberg and Nicole Maniaci, violist Kim Fredenberg, cellist Melinda Mack, and bassist Toby Vigneault. And they're playing Mozart, Dvorak, Piazzolla, and Bach this Wednesday at noon. And that's also an opportunity to lift up the work that Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless does. We always encourage donations during those concerts, so we hope that you will tune in on our YouTube channel. Thursday evening, and this is something that is mostly being offered to our chancel choir, but anyone could get in on. But Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, my colleague, Therese McCauley, who's our assistant music director here at St. John's, is teaching a session on Zoom about solfege, that wonderful tool that musicians use. And if you're not familiar with solfege, you are if you've ever seen The Sound of Music. Therese is going to be doing an introduction to solfege as a way of helping musicians and especially singers make sense of scores. So if you're interested in that and you're not on the Chancel Choir mailing list, let me know and I'll send you a link. We would love to have you join. And then finally, this Saturday at 5 o'clock, we'll offer our monthly Jazz Vespers, which is being live streamed from the sanctuary, second Saturday of every month, as we've been doing for years. Music led by Robert Law and a message brought by Reverend Dr. Scott Sharp. Diana Hughes will be singing. We hope you will tune in for that. This has been fun to have a kind of a outlet on Monday mornings to talk about music. And as I have gotten tired of the sound of my own voice, I have been interested in having conversations with friends and colleagues to talk to them about music that they love. And so I've been trying to issue invitations to people that I admire. And when some of those people have turned me down, I decided to invite Bradley Ellingboe. Most of you are familiar with Brad's work as a composer and as a conductor. Certainly, we are in Albuquerque, but really all over the country and all over the world, folks know Brad and his work. And I am sincerely grateful that he has taken time out of his enormously busy schedule to join me this morning to chat. So, whoa, there he is. Good morning, Brad.
Hey, I didn't know there'd be other people involved. Hi, man.
Yeah, well, I'll just mute myself and you can talk for an hour. That would probably make you happy.
I have prepared a number of amusing anecdotes from my boyhood in Minnesota.
Are you from Minnesota? I didn't know that.
It has come up once or twice. Yeah.
You were no, seriously, when I talk about you, I tell people that you were from Wisconsin and that you're Swedish. Do I have that wrong?
Well, folks, it's been really nice to spend a little time with you. Back to Matt.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Brad, he is both a proud Minnesotan and an extremely proud Norwegian. So I apologize. This has gotten off on a really the wrong foot.
Yeah. So my countryman's painting the scream.
I meant to mention actually, so let me do that really quickly. We're going to be talking about a couple of pieces of music, and so we'll be sharing the screen so that you can see the score of a couple of pieces, and then we're going to be playing recordings. If you are interested in just being able to view those scores on your own in the chat box, there are a couple of files. If you scroll up in the chat, there are PDF files that you can click and download if you want to, and print out if you want to. Don't use them for any nefarious purpose. But they're available if that's easier for you to just have a score in hand. And then the other thing that I'll say is we'll be playing a couple of recordings. And it's always kind of dicey sharing recordings over the internet. And so, if it's possible for you, I would recommend listening through headphones. If you're sitting there with a friend or a spouse, that may not be the easiest thing, but it's also kind of romantic to share headphones with someone else, I find. So,
I can hardly get a pair of headphones that fit my own head, let alone hear
yes, I was going to say.
them.
So, Brad, you and I are both in the same boat in a lot of ways. We're both church musicians, and things are really different these days. Being church musicians, we're both choir directors, and things are certainly different these days. Being choir director, you are the choir director at United Church of Santa Fe, and have been for several years. What's it been like up there since all of this began, and how have you been keeping in touch with your choir and helping them to do something?
Well, and yeah, all sincerity, although this is a quip, there's a friend of mine who is both got her doctorate in music and is an ordained Methodist minister at a big church in the Atlanta suburbs. And she said, after all this schooling, I didn't really expect to become a televangelist.
Yeah.
And that's, we were kidding that all of us that work at the United Church, and I bet it's true at St. John's in Albuquerque, we've done church for decades, and if you walk in and something is changed on the fly, or instead of this one thing, we're going to do this other thing. Say, great. I mean, we've got the chops to do that, but now we have to be good at digital things, and none of us are really of that generation. And so it's been a pretty steep learning curve. At the United Church, we make services as a recording. I know some of my colleagues and friends have do things live in a sanctuary that allows people to be a fair bit apart, and that's a different way of doing things. But in our case, the service is virtual. It consists of a variety of parts. One of the good things is different segments can be recorded in advance and plugged in, so there is a change of background. For example, sometimes one of the members will do one of the readings from their home in the backyard, and we see that, and then we cut back to the church. And we have a paid quartet of choral scholars, and they have done a lot of the hymn singing, which is then scrolled across the screen, and you can sing at home if you want to. The message is, I think, taped on Friday. It's all put together on Saturday and uploaded on our YouTube channel on Sunday. But there's nothing that doesn't have its own good and bad. The bad is pretty obvious. The good, I think, the silver lining, if you will, is that all of us are able to look at other people's church services that we might not have been able to. In our case, we're getting some, former members who moved to California or Connecticut or something tuning in. And by the same token, I'm able to watch your service, provide written notes every Monday morning for what you could do better.
I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. Yeah.
It's one of my ministries.
Us unsolicited feedback is just the best, isn't it? Yeah, we have what you just said is absolutely true. It has been interesting for us on Sunday mornings, and we're streaming live mostly, although there are pre-recorded elements from here in our beautiful sanctuary, which now resembles a TV studio. But it's been lovely that people who used to be part of the community of St. John's can now feel a part of the community again in a way that they haven't been able to. And I have family members, who tune in for things from different parts of the country, and yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think I don't know what conversations you folks have been having, but one thing that we have definitely been feeling. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. We'll just wait, folks.
Well, that was annoying.
Yeah. Boy, if you were in my choir rehearsal, you'd be on your way out the door right now.
If I was in your choir rehearsal. Wow. I don't know how to find my way back to you, Matt. Where did you go?
It showed up on probably on FaceTime on your laptop and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, let me send somebody over to your house to see if we can get this figured out. In the meantime, I can't even remember what I was saying.
You were talking about as we go forward.
Oh, simply that we think that when we are able to have folks worshiping live again, it's not like the virtual or live stream is going to go away. It's going to continue to be important because I think people are going to start coming back fairly gingerly at first. At least a lot of our folks will. So
Yeah, we've kind of come to the same conclusion. And, let's face it, a lot of our members at most parishes are up there in years. They should be careful of the pandemic. Maybe a year will go by or something before we can think about having regular services, and they're another year older. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is one of those watershed moments where on the other side of it, on the other side of it, everything is a little bit different. And I think there have been times when I've thought, compared to World War I or, World War II that went on for 6 years for the English, and they got up every morning and went to work even after London had been bombed. And, this has been 8 months. That being said, on the other side of however long this lasts, we don't know yet what, but lots of things will have been adjusted probably forever.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I have been doing to try and stay connected to music is just I've been continuing to try and listen and learn and remind myself of pieces that I love. And that's part of what we've been doing on Monday mornings. So I am going to share a piece and then I'm going to invite you to do the same if there's time. Let me share the screen. And there we go. This should work reasonably well. Can you see that? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So Brad and I didn't necessarily talk about what we were going to share this morning. I simply said kind of the order of the day is share a piece of music that you love. And this is a sacred anthem called Praise to the Lord the Almighty by German composer Hugo Distler. It's a kind of an interesting figure. He was a German Lutheran composer, church musician, professor. You can see by his dates, he did not live very long, 1908 to 1942. And the reason for that, sadly, is he was someone who was trying to work in the church in Germany under Hitler. And kind of, there's a whole story behind it that you can look up, but the pressure in trying to negotiate all that became too much for him, and he ended his own life at the age of 34. But he left a really small collection of really interesting, I think, and really creative choral music in addition to organ music. And Brad, do you know this piece?
I do, actually. We sang it in college, and it's just a little masterpiece. I didn't know until about a half an hour ago that you were going to bring this up, but yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, so of course it's based on the hymn we know and love. And one of the things that I think Distler does in a fair amount of his choral music is that he takes pre-existing material, did this with material by Bach or material by Schütz or some of those great composers, and just kind of reimagines it, but in a way that definitely doesn't mess very much with the harmony or go any place particularly strange harmonically. I think he's kind of a master of counterpoint. I've always thought about this piece. And what happens in this piece is that the hymn tune is basically always present in the soprano line. Let me go full screen so we can do the whole thing. Oops, we're going to do a page at a time. That's fine. But you could see in the soprano line, praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation. First thing you notice, and again from my giant red marks on the page to remind myself of how many beats there are in a measure, is that he plays with rhythm in a really, really interesting way. And so you see the sopranos and a bar later, the tenors in canon. And then for the second portion, beginning in the, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the middle of the page, at Gather Ye Round, then he kind of starts to take off on individual words in a way that is just kind of joyful and lovely. So sopranos have, gather ye round, let us make music resound. Just taking off on the word music, I just love. And then on the second page, I learned this. You sang this in college. I think I did too, Brad. I remember singing it in high school when I was a bass. And the bass line is just so fun. Top of the second page. Praise him in glad adoration, glad adoration. We have a bar of 4/4, we have a bar of 7/4, and then so he's playing with the meters, I think, just to kind of in the purpose of bringing out some of the joy of the text. Then the second stanza, which begins there on the second system of the page, again, canon, tenors and basses in unison, then sopranos, then altos, really, really low, and takes off in the middle of that page. Hast thou not seen how thy heart's wishes have been? And one of my favorite moments, sopranos and altos taking off on this, how thy heart's wishes. Granted in one. It's just wonderful and just kind of joyful and unexpected. And then there's a da capo back to the first stanza. If you take it presto as marked, it lasts, all of maybe 3 minutes. One of my memories of this piece, Brad, is, and I was talking to Taylor Davis about this last week, is I think especially early in our careers working with church choirs, when we came out of, just on fire with all of this great choral music that we had sung in high school and college. And some of us sometimes had things that we just desperately wanted to do with choirs that we had no business trying to do with the particular group of singers that we had in front of us. And I remember very early on, like my very first choir that was all my own, the first or second year, desperately wanting them to do this piece. And not really knowing how to kind of not get them stressed out about the mixed meters and get them to really feel it in a way that would make any sense of the music at all. I'm sure that never happened to you with any piece of music in your life.
I often wondered if maybe with Distler's first church choir, he just wrote down what they did with a regular straight ahead.
Yeah, so this is a transcription of a church choir trying to sing a 4-part hymn. That's a really interesting theory. Yeah.
No. I just that was low hanging fruit. So no, but I know exactly. You come out with a burning desire to emulate your favorite old professor, and then you've got your first church choir is like that Revolutionary War painting with a guy with a bandage on his head and one guy in a crutch, and you say, yeah, now we'll sing this 8-part the Agnus Dei version of Barber's
Yes. And I think back to those years in particular, and I want to find all of those people and apologize and thank them both for being so kind to me.
Give them a refund, really. I should pay back my salary for the first 20 years, maybe.
Well, I'm going to play a recording of this, so I'm going to stop sharing. And again, if you want to keep looking at the score, there is a link at the top of the chat to a PDF of the score if you would like. This is a recording from a group called the Atlanta Sacred Chorale, and hopefully this will come through beautifully. Here we go. Apologies, that just up and stopped, didn't it?
Yeah, no sound
One's
for a minute. I can turn on my ringtone again if you like.
let me do something a bit different. Sorry, folks. It's a nice performance, isn't it?
Yeah, is that I can't think of his last name right now. Eric. Yeah, who can
Um,
that?
I don't know. I wasn't familiar with the group. I should know this because this is my show. I should be better prepared. But it's not the Atlanta Master Chorale. It's a different Atlanta
Oh,
chorale.
okay.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
really well done.
So one of the things I was interested in asking, mostly because I don't know that I've ever heard you talk about this, but I know that you are one of three children, all boys. Um, grew up Lutheran, grew up in Minnesota, grew up Norwegian, still growing up Norwegian. Uh, and I mean, I we know each other really well and know each other's families. And you have a brother who ended up being a pastor and a brother who ended up being an engineer, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, how is it? And I'm the same way. I'm the only musician in my family. I'm one of five children. I assume I don't think your parents were musicians. So how did this all happen for you? How did you end up in this racket?
Well, gosh, we grew up very active in church. My mother was a very good amateur soprano, and on her mother's side, so I had two great uncles who were professional musicians, and I think going to St. Olaf, which is a Swedish Lutheran school in Wisconsin. um, that I'm the youngest. Both my brothers went there. They were both active in music in high school, and Randy did some music in college too. But I did not go to college to be a music major. I went. I think I've told you this, but I went to. I was going to play football it's a little college, and I probably would have made the team. And was going to be a business major, and then I hurt my knee right before freshman year, and so I tried out for choir. I had been in choir just my senior year of high school, kind of as you get the requirements done and you got more time. And we had a very fine choir director at my high school, but I was just not involved. And I really liked that. Then I got to St. Olaf and I sang in the second highest choir. At that point, I think there were 5 choirs at the college, and this was the one that is famous and goes on tour. They don't let freshmen in because it takes too much time. They thought, let the freshmen get used to college. And I really liked the choir, and but I was still not a music major. Met my now wife of almost 40 years. We met right away freshman year, and she was a nursing major. So still trying to decide what I might do. And then I tried out for the touring choir, and I thought if I get in, then I'll do that. And if I don't, I'll get ready for football for my sophomore year. But then I did get in. You're chosen in the spring, and then next fall you'll be in that group. And then in my sophomore year, became a music major, and then went on and was going to, I did go on, and I was a music theory major, and went on and got a degree in voice, and then I was going to sing for a living. But then also got a degree in conducting at Eastman, and then I was really tired of school and wanted to get a job. And the 80s were a tough time to, New York was kind of awful in the 80s. A lot of my friends moved to New York and have done very well indeed. But I started working in academia, but always had a church job in that time. And I don't know if that's at all interesting, but I've put all these things kind of together with singing and conducting and writing music.
So you went into St. Olaf intending to be a business major, and you came out a voice major or a music theory major?
Music theory.
Music theory. And so where were your parents with all of this? That the idea that you might make a career in music?
Well, I think they were fine with it. I think, my dad only went to the 8th grade, and he was very well read and kind of self-taught. But, he was of the mind that you go to college and when you get done, you should have something you can do for a living. Crazy madcap that he was. But I was also the youngest. And I think that, my brothers are 6 and 10 years older than I am, and they had gone and, tried a few things and not gone right away to the thing that they ended up doing. And so I think at that point he was a little bit like, well, I guess this works its way out. And, if you get a good education, you can figure out a way to make a living. And my mother was thrilled because,
Really?
Yeah, she just, she couldn't. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of and I was pretty musical as a small kid. And I think it was, fairly obvious that was my gift. But, I grew up in a little town, and there weren't like, okay, these are the theater kids and these are the music kids and these are the jocks and so forth. It was, I don't know, there weren't kind of any music kids per se. So I think maybe I just wanted to fit in, and I did other stuff.
Did you sing in church choir growing up?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And when did composing and arranging enter the picture for you?
Well, one of the things that I guess maybe when I was a junior and senior in high school, I played in the band, and I started to do some arranging then. And, the St. Olaf choir tradition, the guy that founded the ensemble in the early 1900s, there wasn't much of this kind of music to be had, so he started writing it, and then his son took over the choir and he wrote more. And then my mentor was the 3rd director of the choir, and he was a wonderful composer. And so these people that I admired kind of made tailor-made pieces and arrangements and compositions for their ensemble. And I just wanted to be them when I grew up.
But that was composing and arranging part of your life when you were at Eastman, when you were getting a voice degree? And
Well, I did take choral arranging with Sam Adler, and that was a really good education. And what happened is I went to Eastman to be a voice major, studied with Jan de Gaetani, who was just a fabulous human being and musician. And then Don Newen started the choral. That was my first year, was his first year there, and they brought him in to kind of revive the sort of moribund choral conducting program. And the requirements for both degrees were pretty similar. So but really I was kind of a half-hearted opera singer, in so far as it's a little different now, but opera was really cast by I guess it's still mainly the same case. Opera is cast by voice type, so the adorable soubrette soprano could be 52 and her father is played by a 26-year-old babe.
opera is absurd.
Opera is absurd, right? And I just, as a bass baritone, I was not terribly interested in those parts. Mm-hmm. But I did enjoy getting better at singing. And my particular voice range is really better suited for oratorio. Mm-hmm. And so that was always fun. And then I always wanted to have a family and a home life. And, I think we all feel this way. It would be nice if you could have about 3 lifetimes, one where it just is a big professional success, one that's cozy and one where we're, rich as Croesus through our work in the church.
Yes. Yeah, that has always been my goal. Well, through right. Working in the church. Right. So you want to tell us about the piece you brought?
Right. I wanted to talk about one of my favorite arrangements. Funny, we're both talking about arrangements today, but this is James Erb's arrangement of Shenandoah. And I know that he conducted at the University of Richmond, and this is really a well-written piece, but I don't know any other music by him. And this is it's like To Kill a Mockingbird, although, lately there was a new piece by Harper Lee, but it was right. Mostly I just wrote one thing and it was perfect, so I stopped. And one of the things that I've always liked, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of folk music because I was trained as a singer, and I think most folk music it gets smooth, all the strange sort of compositional things that we think are very clever as composing artists get smoothed away by regular people singing the melody, so that it becomes very organic, or like stones at the bottom of the river where all the sharp edges are smoothed out. And I think Shenandoah, the melody, is hauntingly beautiful and kind of a perfect melody. And so what James Erb does with this is he just presents the melody with the ladies in unison, and we just listen to it once and we go, that's a great tune. And then the men come in and they sing it in unison, and to me, about 2/3 of the way through the second stanza, you sort of feel like well, yeah, I mean, it's a great melody. Are you just
Would you play or sing it for us?
Right. Are you just going to sing it in unison the whole time? And so we get. And it draws you in. It takes its own time on those long notes. I'm trying to read off the screen. They go, what a great melody. And the men come in. And about here, I think, well, now he'll do something different. And he doesn't. Okay, maybe here the men will start to sing in harmony. No. And as my friend Matt Greer says, nobody doesn't like a men's chorus. And you go, all right, well, I mean, great melody, but you really haven't shown us anything besides, I mean, it's not really an arrangement. You're just asking people to sing in unison. And then this 8-part chord emerges out of nowhere, and you go like that. If it's well sung, it's the prettiest thing that there ever was. And one of the things I wanted to talk about that maybe our choir singers and lay people might be interested in is the key is really well chosen, and I think this has got to be an E major. It can't be an E flat or F. One of the things is when the ladies first come in, and then they go up to this high E. That's pretty high for an alto. It depends on, if it's a 19-year-old college alto or a 60-year-old church choir alto, but it's likewise for the men. That low B is kind of low for the tenors, and then that high E is kind of high for the basses. And if it was, it'd be easier for the basses but harder for the tenors, and vice versa. But really the rubber meets the road when we get to just where you have up on the screen. 'Tis 7 long years, and the bass is going. I mean, the number of basses that have a low C sharp might be 10%. The ones that have a low C might be 1%. Yeah, but if you've got it, and now just the sopranos have to go up there. And then he starts to play with it, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, now this guy's really got arranging chops. He makes you wait for it in the second stanza with the men, and then he starts to play with it. But my old teacher that I alluded to earlier, Sam Adler, gave a wonderful piece of advice that I remembered for, how long is that? It's almost 40 years. He says, don't make a piece into what it isn't, because you'll be able to, because, you'll be clever and you'll want to show off all the things you learned in school. But, you don't turn a Shenandoah into a Bach fugue. And can we turn the page, one
Sure.
more page? And we get the on top of 6. And so the water kind of rolls by with this upward motif. First sopranos have it, then the second sopranos have it, then the altos have it, and they're all kind of inhabiting the same space. And because it's all kind of outlining E major, you just get this sort of wash of sound. And then you've got to have the men's section to and underneath and if that can just I mean, this is thin gruel on the piano over the speaker of your computer or telephone. But to inhabit a good acoustic where that surrounds you, you just go, okay, Lord, you can take me home now. This is the best thing I ever heard. What if we played a recording of it now?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking, Brad, that reminds me, your remark about what Sam Adler told you is I've heard the same thing from Alice Parker in doing arrangements. And I think the best of the Parker Shaw arrangements do just that. There's kind of not a note in the arrangement that isn't organic to the tune.
Right, absolutely. And they it just like this rising, and it turns into that almost impressionistic wash of sound. Oh, I meant to say one more thing before
Yeah.
we listen. And then at the end, the ladies hold. Uh, they keep going. Oh, Shenandoah, and they hum the N in the middle of Shenandoah. Shenandoah, and they do it, and there's this humming of the three-part ladies, and the men have, and it's kind of bringing the horses back into the barn, and then the ladies just get stuck on that E and hold it out on the O sound of Shenandoah, and the men, they come into unison, and everybody ends on the same E, and it just, if you're old enough to remember when you turned the TV off and the screen sort of flattened and then the line came into a dot and then the dot just faded away. Yeah, and you don't really quite know when it ends.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
It is beautiful. So we're going to, this is a YouTube video, so you'll be able to watch. Again, folks, if you want to be able to follow the score along, there's a link at the top of the chat to a PDF of the score. And this is a performance by University of North Texas a cappella choir conducted by Alan Hightower. Yeah, that's a great performance.
Yeah, yeah, lovely, lovely, and it takes everybody. All 8 sections, or maybe 9 sections of the choir have to be solid. I guess maybe the altos don't. The altos divide too, and this, yeah, eight
Yeah,
eight harmony.
for me, and looking at that piece, we did it with Quintessence. Can't remember the year, but it is always the bottom that is daunting to me. The sustained low E's and the you mentioned the low C sharp, and it's not that you can't it's not that you can't do the piece with those without those low notes, but oh man, it's a different with that foundation of real sound is just
Right.
something.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you mean, and I actually think people's voices have been going up in the 35 plus years that I taught at the university level. Um, yeah, it's harder and harder to find those low basses, and I think that if you know the piece and that's absent, it's yeah, it there's a PDQ Bach cantata called "The Seasonings," and there's a bass aria called "Open Sesame Seed," and it goes. See what you see. And you just kind of feel like there's the
Right.
yeah,
It's like the 64 foot on the organ,
yeah,
you feel more than you hear.
right, or you don't, and you go, yeah, maybe you probably shouldn't have done that one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, something that I'm interested in your opinion and just kind of your background on is that we both chose arrangements today. And I mean, I have never been an arranger or a composer. I'm somebody who very much enjoys judging, you know, people's arrangements and compositions. Um, and I have said to you before, in all sincerity, because we at St. John's have, enjoyed performing your music and have commissioned pieces from you, and I'm a great admirer of your music.
Right.
And I think a lot of maybe folks who write for choirs, such as you, get into it with arranging material, folk material, or something else, which to me is an art in and of itself. And the piece that you just showed is a fantastic example of it. What about straight up composition? What I'm interested in, maybe how you made the shift in feeling good about that, or coming up with melodies and the structure of a piece that really is entirely from you. How did that happen for
So,
you?
first of all, thanks for that genuinely lovely compliment. I'm just going to be nice back again. I don't know. We must be growing up.
People are not tuning in for this, but go ahead.
No, I just wondered, do you know something about my health that I don't? Anyhow, well, as I was alluding to earlier, these people that I admired wrote music for their own ensemble, and then I started to have church choirs, and maybe we had music that I admired that I wanted to do, but it was too high or something like that. And so I would say, well, I want to do Away in a Manger this Christmas, but I can't find an arrangement that I think fits my group, so I'll make one, which was a fun thing to do. And then some of my first ones got published and did pretty well. And so there's, it was kind of positive feedback. And then I started to think more about composition. And at the end of my career at the University of New Mexico, I became a kind of tangential part of the composition faculty, and certain people could take lessons if they were interested in writing for the voice. And one of the things that I found there, and I was guilty of it too, is that people went right away to compositions that then were going to show, all of their interesting ideas. And two big things that I saw an awful lot of the time were pieces that weren't consistent in how difficult they were throughout. In other words, on a scale of 1 to 10, this piece started out as a 4, and then there's just 8 measures that are a 10, and then they go back to be, and I mean, if it starts off and it's going to be hard, then you decide yay or nay. But it's like thinking, how many steps there are when you're walking down the basement in the dark, and then there's one more and you fall over. So that kind of thing to be avoided, so that there wasn't anything that came out of nowhere, or 14 ideas in a 3-minute piece. And so I think arranging helped me with that, with the idea of Sam Adler, don't make a tune into something it isn't. And then I started to write my own tunes and then arrange them, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always my modus operandi. And I'm certainly not, I'm not even being falsely modest. Winston Churchill once talked about a man, he's a humble man with much to be humble about. And I think, there are certainly people that write a lot better choral music than I do. But if I put my name on it, and now after, I think my first piece was published in 1989, you sort of want it to be something you can feel proud of. And I mean, even the great Alice Parker or something, who we both call a friend, there's some of her music that just for personal taste you like better than other of her music. But you're going to get a quality product when you open a piece of sheet music by Alice. And so I've tried to do that. And then I kind of made my name as writing for regular church choirs, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then as time went by, I said, well, I've published 100 pieces like that. I'd like to branch out a little bit. But, long story short, maybe too late for that, but there are a lot more church choirs than there are quintessences or University of North Texas choirs or something like that. But I've never tried to make my living doing it either. So just
right.
Kind of for fun, and sometimes a little money comes in and we go out for supper.
Yeah, well, I knew, as I knew your music well, and enjoyed programming it and doing it with my choirs long before I ever knew that I was going to move to New Mexico and strike up a friendship with you. But I remember thinking then, because as if you're any kind of choir director, church choir director or otherwise, and you find yourself a lot of time spent in programming, and certainly in the context of being in a church choir, which has to produce something for worship week after week, it's not long in wading through everything that is published before you come to look for the same name that will write something interesting and well crafted, or even the same publisher, so publish interesting and well crafted music. And one of the things that came along for you, you can say it's been more than, has it been more than 20 years? You edited a series for Chose Music called Music for the Church Year, which I just remember, especially as a young church musician, coming to rely on, because the pieces are so good and represent a variety of composers, but also others. How long have you been doing that?
I remember Neil asking me at the National Convention in Washington, D.C. in 1996. And I think the first pieces came out in 97. So, 23 years.
Yeah.
Right now, it's an interesting time in all that we do because, to your point, well, you've got a big, wonderful program there at St. John's. And now, the last 8 months notwithstanding, my analogy is it's kind of like shoveling coal into a locomotive. Okay, we sang 2 pieces today, and then next week we've got 2 pieces, and next week, and we don't do so much in the summer, but it still ends up being 80 pieces of music, and you've got to figure that out and make sure that it's not all slow and pretty or all, fast and jazzy, that there's something for everybody. Are you
Right.
singing Mozart? Are you singing the new people? And this is a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, you'd say, I'm going to look for this name, or I'm going to go to this publisher because I
Right.
bet I'm going to find something I like. And now there's so much self-publishing. And so there's really kind of a fire hose of stuff out there. And sometimes then you find a name of somebody you like that publishes their own music, Jocelyn Hagan or somebody like that. And but there used to be kind of a filter, in other words, if you had a piece published by Hinshaw, then there are about 3-4 people or a whole committee looked at it. And then you knew, the Hinshaws, I think, publisher, we both agree would be somebody who would go look at. And now it's like everything on the interweb. It could come from the New York Times, or it could come from some guy in Montana in his basement.
Yeah, exactly right. That's so interesting because it's true of everything now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody who has a laptop be can be an author, can be a publisher, can be a composer,
Mhm.
can put his or her stuff out there. And so I know that it's been a just kind of a tumultuous time in all kinds of industries, but certainly in music publishing as well. Um, yeah.
And the stores, and we can talk about our dear mutual late friend Joe Keith and the Music Mart.
Hmm.
I remember when I started in the late 90s, Neil Cho said, there used to be more stores, but now there are about 12 really big stores that cut a swath across the United States. And those people, that was another way of both distributing music, but also maybe was a filter. And maybe it was, maybe you liked the filter or maybe you didn't, in other words,
Yeah.
somebody at the publisher chose whether it got published, and then somebody at the store chose whether or not it got on the reading session.
Right. Yeah.
But now that's all gone too, and mostly choice is good, but you haven't. They've said, like, if you go to a grocery store and there's 2 kinds of toothpaste, you go, what kind of rotten store is this? And if you go and there's 2 aisles just of toothpaste, and there are 647 choices, I'm just going to
Right.
go now.
Yeah. 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 Well, this has been really fun, and I really wish we're basically out of time. This is supposed to be an hour-long session. I had a couple of other questions I was going to ask you, such as why is Methodist hymnody so superior to Lutheran hymnody?
Ah,
And so, will you come back and we can talk about some of these
sure,
important
sure,
things?
sure. I
Um,
would love to debate that topic.
okay. And honestly, Brad, I would love to have another session with you just to talk about a couple of your pieces that I really love and maybe that you're particularly proud of. So let's find a time to do that.
Thank you so much. The time has just flown by because I've been able to talk about myself the whole time.
Yes. Well, not entirely. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to work. You should go to work. You're sitting at the piano, so why don't you go ahead and write something? Don't sit up and don't get up until you've written something nice. And send it to me and I'll send you notes.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching this morning, and thanks again, Brad. We'll see you.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye.
Thanks.